What is up, everyone? 2 minutes in the box with Gordo here today on this lovely Friday. Okay, we've got games to recap from last night, the latest rumors in the NHL, the latest money puck odds of who's going to be favored to win the Stanley Cup, retro nostalgic jersey mania, and a possible resurrection of a familiar market. And we got the Rob Ray gift from the Carolina Hurricanes and consequences and sacrifices and Mika Rantanen ideas, the Shen brothers, and U23 and preview tonight's game. Let's talk about games from last night. The first up, the New York Islanders against the Boston Bruins. Both teams in dire situations for the playoffs. And the Islanders came up top 2-1. And they came in clutch and they were barely won that game. And Kyle Palmieri and Brock Nelson, the two big trade pieces, got a couple points here and there. And I'll say, the Islanders, they could still make it and push it real good. But they go over to north of the border with Montreal Canadiens against San Jose Sharks. What a game that was. Heck of an overtime victory for the Montreal Canadiens. And Cole Caulfield, just spectacular. Man, this kid is definitely going to be a 40 goal scorer. And Monbol got that secondary assist. That was pretty damn nice. And Nick Suzuki, most underrated captain in the NHL, and Lane Hudson, just a maniac with these assists. Man, he's like second favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. And Yaroslav, he's picking up the slack a little bit. And he's a good player, but he needs to grow into his role a little bit more. He needs to make more of an impact. And now we go over to Detroit for this home and home series with the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Red Wings. It was a disappointing night for Dylan Larkin. Tom McCullen said he just wasn't there, disappeared. He needs to show up and play his game. And the Blue Jackets, though, man, they are cruising. They are in that playoff mix. It is very real. Ken Johnson, underrated. JVR, man, he is about to get a 20 goals, 25 goal season. What a quiet, underrated signing. JVR, man, who would have thought he's on the verge of getting 20 to 25 goals this year? How crazy that is. And Kirill Marchenko, man, what an underrated player with the best plus minus in the National Hockey League. Very impressive. And, Alex DeBrincat, another stud. He's on the verge of getting 40 goals. He's got 27 right now. He is definitely on the count for 40. And then we go down to Tampa Bay of a 2004 nostalgic Stanley Cup final rematch between the Calgary Flames and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I'll say, Tampa Bay blew them out 3-0. Kucherov, no surprise, Gensel, Cernak, Hagel. I mean, Victor Hedman getting a couple helpers. And I'll say this, Ryan Lomberg, he said the funniest thing about being back in Florida, he loves the palm trees. He loves the weather, but he hates those guys in Tampa Bay. I can't use the F word. You'll see in the video later, but it was hilarious response. And he's still a Florida Panther at heart. And I can't wait for that tribute video because he's still a fan favorite in South Florida. I seen the jerseys all over Emirates Bank Arena. Like, you know, Ryan Lomberg is still beloved in South Florida, and he was a key piece to the puzzle to the Stanley Cup championship. And I bet Hubie and Weegs are going to be very distraught when they see that tribute video because they really wanted that cup. They were part of that core, and they still want that Stanley Cup. And we go down south of South Florida. We had a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final matchup between the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers. Very close game indeed. I mean, what a game. Tied after the first period, tied after the second period. Panthers, they picked it up in the third period. I mean, Nate Schmidt, Carter Verhage getting those two goals, and then Hyman try to squeeze it in there for the Oilers. Ah, man, so close. But there was speculation of Connor McDavid being hurt, and he did play the game, and he did get an assist or two, and it was a very tight game. It was fast paced. They were competing like hell. I would say the Oilers got swept again in the regular season by the Florida Panthers. Hopefully, We would like to see a rematch, but who knows? The Stanley Cup odds favor, blah, blah, blah. But overall, that game was the highlight reel of the night. That game should have been nationally televised. That's a darn shame and a disappointment. It was a hard fought, fast paced game. That was one of the best games of the night. I know I'm being a little biased because I live in South Florida, but it was an epic game. Very close and highly anticipated. It was a high scoring affair up in Edmonton, but this was even better. And let's go over to the nation's capital. Best team in the NHL, Washington Capitals against St. Louis Blues. Braden Shen's 1,000th game. Congratulations to Braden Shen and the Washington Capitals losing 5-2. Connor McMichael getting a goal and an assist. And Pierre-Luc Dubois has been playing well as of late. And the Blues, though, they got some interesting pieces on the trade block, and their pieces that they got from the Edmonton Oilers, Dylan Holloway, and Phil Broberg, they have been playing very well for the St. Louis Blues this season. And the Blues are still somewhere in the hunt, but who knows? Let's just see what happens over the weekend. And now we've got the Carolina Hurricanes against the Buffalo Sabres. Man, what a game for the Hurricanes. Nostalgic night, Thursday, Hartford Whaler night. Man, that was so cool. But you know what ruined it? The damn ad on the jersey. It ruined everything. Don't kill an iconic classic jersey with a stupid ad. I mean, for one game, don't put a bloody ad on that jersey. That just ruined a classic uniform. Take notes. I mean, look at the Buffalo Sabres. They are the bottom feeders of the NHL, and they don't even have an ad on the jersey. I mean, good for them. But let's go to the thing we talk about Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, like Mika Rantanen, productive night, productive night. Got a couple assists. And let's just say this, Seth Jarvis, one of the most underrated players in the NHL, 23 goals. He's on pace to be 35 goals. And the Carolina Hurricanes, on the other end, they gave a surprising gift to Razor with bubble wrap because he got hit in the face with a puck against the New York Rangers last week. And Mika Rantanen, man, he's finally picking up the slack. Goal and assist for this game. But the question is, when we get to it, we're going to give an update what's going on with his contract situation and where he's going to be for the rest of the season and beyond. And now we go to the Keystone State rivalry, a home and home. Again, what a crazy game this turned out to be for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. Philadelphia getting 3-0, and Alex Nedeljkovic freaked out. He was not too happy about being pulled early in the game, and it sparked some motivation and mojo and momentum, and it motivated the players. That's what Mike Sullivan said, the coach of the Penguins. See what he said. And the Penguins, though, they picked it up. Erik Karlsson getting a couple of good goals, and Gino getting the game-winning goal in overtime, and crucial points right there. I feel like at least they got a point out of it. It was very eventful. Erik Karlsson getting two, and then it might have Michkov for the Flyers, though. Damn, this guy is going to be he's going to be 20 goals. I believe this kid is definitely going to be getting 20 by the end of the weekend. And here's a spoiler alert. This kid's definitely going to be between 20 to 30 goals by the end of the year. And it's going to be a very close race for the Calder Trophy for the Rookie of the Year. And now we go over to the best team in the West and to one of the worst teams in the West. The Winnipeg Jets losing for the first time in 11 games. 11-game winning streak done. Nashville wins 2-1. It was a close game, and Novak getting the game-winning goal, power play in the first period. It was basically an eventful first period, and then everything was just hard fought. Nothing happened for goals for the rest of the game. And now we go over to Salt Lake City, Utah. Utah Hockey Club against the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild only had 16 shots on goal. And the wild part is that Bill Guerin rejected Clayton Keller. Clayton Keller had a hell of a night. He was left off Team USA for the Four Nations Cup. And Clayton Keller, 1 assist, 2 assists. Then we go to 3 assists. Then we go goal and 4 assists. 5-point night. And it's straight into Bill Guerin's face that Clayton Keller, he's a top 10 player in the NHL in the point category, 69 points. He's got 47 assists with 22 goals. Unreal. Unreal. We're talking an unreal statistic right there. But what a record. It's a record breaking night for Clayton Keller for his expansion team for Utah Hockey Club. And it was Marc-Andre Fleury's first visit ever in Salt Lake City as the goaltender for the Minnesota Wild in the NHL. I don't know, but maybe he played in Salt Lake City 20 years ago during the NHL lockout when he was with Wilkes-Barre against the Utah Grizzlies. Coincidentally enough, the affiliate of the Phoenix Coyotes. Man, Sergachev and all that. And I'll tell you, Minnesota is getting very close into the standings for a potential final wild card spot in their inaugural year. I mean, this doesn't count for the Phoenix Coyotes. Coyotes will be back in the next few years, but Utah, good for them, getting very close to that playoff spot. Very, very close indeed. And now, speaking of basement dwellers against the top Pacific Division leading Vegas Golden Knights, 7-5. What a game for Vegas. I mean, just an amazing game for Vegas. I mean, it was a back and forth, back and forth. And let's just put it this way, Jack Eichel, top 10 player in the NHL, he is going to get 100 points. This guy is just unbelievable. I mean, he is basically a modern Joe Thornton, but with more finesse, and he could score goals. He's about 51 assists, just wild. And as for the Blackhawks, though, not a good night for them. I mean, Timo Teravainen took 30 assists so far this season, pretty good on a basement team. And looking at their numbers, and Colton Dock, 2 goals, and Tyler Bertuzzi, 14. What a bummer of a signing for the Blackhawks. Tyler Bertuzzi's only got 14 assists. And Donato, he is gotten 40 points now in his first in his year with Chicago this season, and he's a very valuable poker chip in the trade deadline next Friday. And if I were anyone, anyone in the NHL trade deadline, I would definitely get Ryan Donato and couple of draft and trade for him, get a couple of draft picks in return for Chicago. Yeah, and then we finally go to the final game of the night, the Anaheim Ducks against the Vancouver Canucks in Orange County. And I gotta say, 2-0 lead for the Canucks, and the Ducks, they just got 5 in a row after that. For Toronto, unreal. Cutter Gauthier, he's got 12 goals. He's finally picking it up. Stromer, he's got 9 goals of the year and then 24. It's been a tough year for Stromer, indeed. And let's just say, Troy Terry, obviously very under the radar type of guy. And 25 assists for Stromer. He's got 34 points this season, but it's still been a tough year for Anaheim, and he's on the trade block as well. Very interesting night indeed in the NHL. And the standings, oh yeah, it's gonna. You think if the Eastern Conference is close, the West is very close when it comes to for the final spot in the Western Conference for the playoffs. Wow, just spectacularly wow. Now let's get to the free agency trade deadline rumors of the day. So we've got Brock Nelson. Brock Nelson's the top player at the trade deadline for next Friday. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year. Minnesota, Winnipeg are highly interested with the 33-year-old with 38 points this season. And yeah, he's a great two-way guy, and he doesn't take any crap from anybody. He's still a good player, and I think he'd be a great rental. Minnesota definitely needs the help because they're injured and banged up, and I know Colorado's going to be playing catch up in the Central Division, and I know Winnipeg's heavily depth up at center. I'm going to say Minnesota is definitely a favorite for Brock Nelson, and then you got Brock Besser for the Vancouver Canucks, 28 years old. He's been struggling this year. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year. The Canucks are offering a 5-year deal. He wants longer term, maybe 6 to 8 years. And I gotta say, I think that the Canucks are going to trade Besser. But hold on. But they are in the playoff chase. I wouldn't think it would be wise that the Canucks trade Brock Besser just yet. I think that they got to keep him and then let him walk. But then again, if they miss out on the playoffs and they do trade him, at least you got some compromisable return in draft picks and a prospect in their favor. So it's a consequence and a sacrifice right there. Oh yeah. And then you got Mika Rantanen. Boy, Carolina, they've got their hands full. I mean, I know they're going to be re-signing Taylor Hall. That's a plan B right there. And then you've got the situation like, we feel like it's last year over again when they got Jay Gensel and they got basically nothing in return, but they did get something in return at the draft with a draft pick or two. And if I were Carolina, are you willing to go through this again? Yeah, that is a tough call. I know you guys are going to be playing New Jersey in the first round again, but you guys need to address the elephant in the room. What does the Carolina Hurricanes need more? And I mean, you need a goalie. I get it. You need a goalie ASAP to help Frederick Anderson, but is it more important to keep Rantanen now or let him walk at free agency? That is the $1 million question. Do you keep him or let him walk? And then you got Braden Shin, speaking of which, who played his 1,000th game for the same in the NHL, and he's with the St. Louis Blues. 36 points. He's got 3 years left at $6.5 million cap hit. Man, I gotta say, to me, you got term, but is it really worth it? I mean, you got both brothers on the trade block, and I would probably say, keep Braden, and then you figure it out at the end of the season and off season. Then you got Scott Lawton. Scott Lawton, they've been having talks with the Flyers, contract negotiations, but Washington and Toronto are highly interested in him. And he's got 1 year left with $3 million cap hit. And then you got Connor Soucy, the defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks. He's got 1 year left at a $3.3 million deal. Left defenseman, I mean, I gotta say, I would definitely be very curious where he goes. I gotta say, I'd probably trade him. I'd probably trade him, but they need that depth on the back end. And now you've got Seth Jones. Seth Jones, this is a sensitive, controversial topic. He's got $9.5 million for a cap hit and 5 years left. And I just don't think he's tradable, and I don't think he's really worth it. I mean, I've been hearing, Florida, Colorado, and Dallas, but I don't know if it's the right call to make. I mean, Chicago's willing to keep him, but on the other side, he wants out. But it's a complicating, sensitive topic to talk about. I gotta say, if I were Chicago, I am gonna be probably trading him Thursday or Friday at this point. You got to get something in return. Maverick Bork's a player that, who's very talented, and, Chicago can lock him up long term if he comes on over. And it'll be a good deal that, you're building up front for Bedard and in his group. And then you got Rooster Missalainen for the Philadelphia Flyers. He's got 2 years left with a $5.1 million cap hit. I mean, it's a risky move. It's a risky move to partake, but honestly, I would definitely let him go, trade him, get something in return. And then you've got on the other end, with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Rickard Rakell. He's got $5 million cap hit with 3 years left. Rebound year, he's about to get 50 points, 25 goals. If I was Pittsburgh, I would trade him in a nanosecond. Stock's very good. You can get some players in return. And there's certain teams out there that are needing players who can definitely score and add some depth with certain key players who are injured at the moment. Then you got Brant Tanev for the Kraken. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year, $3.5 million cap hit right now. He's a very good rental. and he's a physical body. I mean, certain teams for the playoffs definitely need a player who can play the body and is physical. Yeah, and you got Ryan Donato, we were mentioning earlier, who had a good game last night for the Blackhawks against the Vegas Golden Knights. $2 million cap hit, a UFA at the end of the year, 40 points, career high. His stock's at all-time high. Chicago, trade him now. Then you got Trent Frederick. Trent Frederick for the Boston Bruins. He's got a $2.3 million cap hit, UFA, but he's injured. And he could, if I was Boston, that's a tough one. Since he's out of the lineup, I mean, is it worth trading him? I mean, yes and no, but if I was Boston, I can get something good in return. I can get a couple draft picks, but now we go to Nick Bukestad. Bukey, familiar name of the past. He's a beauty, one of my good friends. $2.1 million cap hit, UFA at the end of the year. And he's been struggling late. And I think he could be a perfect depth piece, for a team in the Eastern Conference, likely, Florida or Carolina. And I was looking at Toronto. And there's a lot of good teams and interesting ideas of where Nick Bukestad can be, and he is very reliable. He could play both left wing, right wing, and center. He's very good forward and a two-way forward. And then you got Dylan Cousins of the Buffalo Sabres. He's got 5 years left of a $7 million cap hit. I mean, Buffalo, really? You're letting go another high-paid player, and then when you leave him, and then he goes to another team, and he's blossoming. I mean, it's like Sam Bennett, like resurgence of his career. I mean, that's a risk, but $7 million cap hit. I mean, yeah. I mean, intrigued, but I very hesitant if I was any team taking some of that cap and that responsibility. Then you got Gustav Nyquist. He's a UFA at the end of the year. And Nashville is definitely going to trade him. I got that feeling already about. Then you got Connor Murphy, defenseman for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's got 16 points, 1 goal. He's got 1 year left of his contract, and he could be definitely a perfect role player defenseman, good depth guy. In the Blackhawks, I would sell him right away. But, I think the Blackhawks are going to be rebuilding that defense during the offseason. But like I said, Zach Jones is a very bold, risky move for $9.5 million. Keep him, then you got to rebuild that defense around, but then you're going to have a disgruntled Zach Jones. Then you got Jake Evans and Joel Armia. Those two are both UFAs, both play for the Montreal Canadiens. Jake Evans at a $1.7 million and $3.4 million for Joel Armia. They're both the same amount of points, technically, 27 for Evans, 24 for Armia. Yeah, if I were Montreal, I'm somewhat going to trade both of them and get something in good prospects or draft picks in return. And then Jan Gord. I think Jan Gord is gone. I think Seattle will retain some of his salary and he'll get some draft picks in return. And then you got Jordan Greenway for the Buffalo Sabres. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year, $3 million. And I got to believe, he's definitely going to be gone. And I think that it's a draft pick or two and a prospect to be named. And then you got Luke Shen. I mentioned earlier with Braden Shen. I got a feeling that we're going to see a Toronto type of thing. Luke Shen going back to Toronto again. And he's got a $2.75 million cap hit. And he's got 1 year left of his contract. And yet next year he's going to be a free agent. I would take the Shen brothers in Toronto. And they want to be nasty like the Kachuk brothers. They're both physical, both gritty and physical, but they're poor man's trash. But overall, I like the Shen brothers. And I really think that, those guys are gritty enough, and Toronto needs that grit to make a deep run in the playoffs. Now you've got Michael McCarron, the National Predators. He's got 1 year left with $900,000. He's a bargain, and he's only got 8 points. I know he's got 50 games played. But if I were Nashville, I sell. Then you got Casey Middleset of the Colorado Avalanche. He's had a good year so far. He's been having an all right season. He's got 2 years left with a $5.75 million cap hit. I would probably keep him for now and then work something out in the offseason. Then you got Jamie Olesiak, defenseman for the Kraken. He's got 1 year left with a $4.6 million cap hit. I personally say keep him. But then you got Elias Pettersson. 11.6, 7 years left of his contract. Boy, Vancouver. I don't understand with this guy. This guy's got like 2 years ago, he was like 106 points. And this guy's like very underwhelming with 35 points. It's the old saying, contracts like that have dire consequences and sacrifices and and drawback. I mean, like, you're falling back on, you become lazy when you make all that money. You've got, the cheaper the player sometimes is better than the most expensive player. It's the reliability and liability. Then you've got Kyle Palmieri, we were mentioning earlier. He's on the trade block. He's a UFA at the end of the year with a $5 million cap hit, 35 points. If I were the Islanders, I would trade him, get some players in return. You got to rebuild that farm system, and you got to rebuild. And then you got Nick Robertson. I think Nick Robertson is definitely going to be gone. Toronto is looking for pieces for a long Stanley Cup playoff push. He's only 875. He's an RFA. And if I were, like I said, Toronto, trade him. Then you've got Bowen Byram. Bowen Byram, he's our RFA at the end of the year. Stanley Cup champ with the Colorado Avalanche, currently with the Buffalo Sabres with a $3.85 million cap hit. And I would, Buffalo, I know that this is going to be crazy. I keep him. Then I would let him walk. Just kidding. I would trade him. Get something good in return. And I know Bowen Byram is a good top four defenseman. He is definitely up and coming defenseman. Then you got David Savard, defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. He's got a UFA at the end of the year, $3.5 million. I believe he is definitely a depth player who's been there, been to the Cup Finals, and he is definitely going to be a perfect piece for a team within the division or out west. Now you got John Gibson, the goaltender for the Anaheim Ducks. He's got 2 years left with a $6.4 million cap hit. And his save percentage, even though the Ducks have been playing well lately, 0.916 save percentage, 2.66. I got to say, keep him, and then work something out in the offseason. But, I know Detroit's looking for a goalie. Edmonton's looking for a goalie. Carolina's looking for a goalie. But who knows? I got to say, for now, let's cross that bridge till it happens. And then you got Alex Tuck for the Buffalo Sabres. He's got 1 year left of his contract with a $4.8 million cap hit, 45 points, young still, 28. I would definitely say keep him. Keep him and then work something out. Then you got Matt Gresslick. He got hurt last night, $2.75 million cap hit. I don't think he's going to get traded anyway. You got Brian Dumoulin for the Ducks. UFA at the end of the year, $3.15 million. 14 points, age 33, 58 games played. This guy right here, I got to say, trade him. Get something good in return. And then you got Baruzzo, we were mentioning the other day. He's a UFA at the end of the year with a $775,000 cap hit. Trade him. Boom. Mario Ferraro, I should say. 1 year left with a $3.25 million cap hit. He's 26. 60 games played. And if I was San Jose, trade him. Get something good in return. Then you got Ryan Lindgren, defenseman for the New York Rangers, UFA at the end of the year. If I'm the New York Rangers, if I know you guys are still in the playoff hunt. If you guys keep going down in the standings, trade him. Then you got Luke Cunnin. It's the right winger for the San Jose Sharks. He's UFA at the end of the year, 18 points, $275 million cap hit. I would trade him. He's a UFA at the end of the year. Who knows if he's going to resign now? You got Ryan O'Reilly, 2 years left and a $4.5 million cap hit. He's 34, Stanley Cup champ, Conn Smythe Trophy winner. I would say if I was Nashville, trade him. Trade him to a team that needs that center depth and that Stanley Cup pedigree. Get to it. And then you've got 2 left to go. We've got Trevor Zegras. He's got 1 year left at a $5.75 million cap hit, 16 points. He's been a disappointment ever since he signed that long-term, that 3-year contract. And the Anaheim Ducks don't like him anymore. The previous regime loved him. He had 61, 65 points prior to the contract extension. And if I was Anaheim, trade him, get some prospects or draft picks in return. And Zegras needs a fresh start and a good foot up the ass to make him play again. And then lastly, we got Erik Karlsson. Played well. last year and the season prior, he had 100 points and he's got 2 years left on his contract. Consequently, I mean, it's a sacrifice, but to get a guy like him, but it's a consequence of getting him. Are we getting a player that's dire for a deep playoff run experience? And the cap hits, it's just like, ooh. I mean, really? Really? I mean, that is a bold, bold assumption right there. And now we're done with the rumors. Now let's get to moneypuck.com. Looking at the playoff and Stanley Cup odds on this website, this right here drives me freaking nuts. This right here, I'm looking at the Florida Panthers right now have a 15.5% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. It drives me wild. And then you've got teams like Toronto with 6%, Winnipeg at 13, Capitals 9%, 10% Dallas, 11% Vegas, and then LA's got 5, Toronto, and Tampa Bay's got 6%, and then you got Carolina at 10%, 2% for the Edmonton Oilers, and 3% Avalanche and the Devils. I mean, Christ. I'm looking at this. I'm like, really? This doesn't add up. It's not right. That is not right. And then looking at the Vegas odds of winning the Stanley Cup, and then you've got Oilers at a plus 700, plus 950 Florida Panthers, plus 900 Carolina Hurricanes, and Dallas Stars plus 1,000, plus 800 Winnipeg, Toronto 900, including the Capitals 1,300 for the Golden Knights. And just looking at these numbers, it's a crazy way of looking at these numbers. I mean, crazy. Looking at all these numbers on bestbets.com, looking at all these numbers, I mean, wow. And just overall, it's just, wild to see stats like this. And I'm just saying, like I don't gamble. I'm not a gambler at the moment right now, but I would say this, I'm looking at these numbers and it's just, I'm not a fan of like some of these numbers. You added them up, divide up how like what the best, 7 gambling sites they've got, and then you got probably a good way of analyzing the numbers saying, okay, what do I like here? And the trade deadline will make these odds shift and change like the New York Stock Exchange. It's a long time ago I said it's real estate, Wall Street, and Vegas. The numbers change all the time. The numbers go up and down with the odds. And I got to say that some of these numbers and analytical numbers are BS. And I would say that these numbers are rubbish. They are just rubbish. Now let's get to my favorite topic, the nostalgic jersey talk. All right, now we've got the Carolina Hurricanes last night playing as the Hartford Whalers, which was iconic and classic. The Whalers, one of the best logos ever been concepted and created. A beautiful logo indeed, a classic, iconic logo in the color scheme. And then you've got the Atlanta Gladiators of the ECHL. This weekend, they're hosting their 3rd annual Atlanta Thrasher Night, and they're going back to the white Atlanta Thrasher home/away jersey. And I gotta say, it's beautiful, lovely, and they really want the NHL back in Atlanta. This is going to show you how passionate the Gladiators in the Atlanta hockey community are that they want the Thrashers to come back. And they should have never left in the first place. They had a crappy owner group, who were suing each other. And it was just and they basically abandoned the team. They kicked them out of the arena. And now that's why Winnipeg's got the Jets. And now looking back, I have to say, you know, it's going to happen. Atlanta is this close of coming back into the NHL. And I believe the arena deal will be sealed and done by the end of spring. All right, now we've got the Buffalo Sabres with Rob Ray. Last week, he gets hit in the eye right here against the New York Rangers. The puck deflects right here. And Tage Thompson, Lindy Ruff were laughing like, "Hey, you're all right." And don't forget, Lindy Ruff and Rob Ray were teammate and they coach one another back in the day. And it's like, all right. And Rob Ray was up in the 300 section at Key Bank Arena. And then, the Carolina Hurricanes gave him a wrap, two wraps of bubble wrap, and just to protect him because he's kind of fragile. I mean, he was a tough SOB back in the day. I mean, he's tough. He took one for the team. He took one right here. I mean, wow. He's a tough man. And then now we got to talk about consequences and sacrifices. It's that time of year. Playoffs, trade deadline, drafts and free agency. There's always that consequence and sacrifice. You know, the individual has to go through it, with their families and with their what their journey is like, the consequences of getting them, like how much you're going to get paid, blah blah blah. There's always that conception in life. Every day we always experience these consequences and sacrifices. We come through, we come up the ladder, but you shoot down like it's shoots and ladders. NHL is not a friendly business sometimes, some players can handle it, some players can't handle it. It's a cutthroat business. And it's one of those things, you learn in life. And now you've got, Mika Rantanen, the idea. I mean, I don't know about trading him again. I mean, they made their bed with it, and and it's like Jake Gensel last year. Carolina went all in, and that they did get a couple, like a draft pick or two in return when Gensel did like they the trade of rights and all that stuff. I mean, Carolina's got to go all in. You made the bed, you made your bed with it. I know you're gonna sacrifice an 8-year deal, and then you're only gonna get 7 on the open market. I mean, Taylor Hall's gonna get like a 3 to 5 year extension. And Rantanen right now, stay in Carolina for now. Then, if it doesn't work out, your rights still can be traded to anyone you want. I mean, Anaheim wants you. I mean, Anaheim last year they came very close to getting Stamkos, Shea, and Marchessault. And I gotta say, if I were Mikko Rantanen, I stay in Carolina, play it through. And now we come to the U23 top 10 so far in the NHL season so far. Very unique list indeed. 10, we got William Eklund, forward for the San Jose Sharks, 12 goals, 30 assists, 42 points. Then you got Macklin Celebrini, also with 42 points, been playing well, 18 goals, 24 assists, 42 points, 48 games, not too bad. Lane Hudson at number 10, he has gotten 59 games played with 4 goals, 40 assists, 44 points. Then Mativ Michkov, we were talking about earlier, this guy's going to be getting 30 goals by the end of the season. He's got 19 goals, 25 assists, 44 points in 58 games. And then JJ Pertica, he's got 44 points in 55 games. Not too shabby. And Dylan Gunther, every time this guy scores a goal, Utah Hockey Club wins. This guy is an impactful player. He's Kevin Durant, basically. I mean, like him and Logan Cooley, between those two, that is a great future 1-2 punch. It's a great future 1-2 punch right there. And then you got Seth Jarvis of the Carolina Hurricanes, we were mentioning earlier. Very underrated. 23 goals, 23 assists, 46 points. And so far, he's played 52 games. And then you got Logan Cooley, 17 goals, 47 points. Very underrated. Him and Dylan Gunther, 1-2 punch. Then you got Connor Bedard. I know he's been slumping this year. He is going to be getting, another 60 something point season. He needs help all around. He needs help all around. And then, he's got 49 points. And then you got White Johnson. White Johnson's an RFA. He is going to be a very interesting signing. Where if like this contract is going to be very interesting. He's got 51 points right now, 17 goals, 34 assists. This guy is definitely going to get a big 6 to 8 year contract extension. They got Tim Stutzel right there. Tim Stutzel, 18 goals, 59 points. He is a future superstar for the Ottawa Senators. Great center depth, very crafty and very creative. And then you got Lucas Raymond of the Detroit Red Wings. This guy's been a stud superstar for the Red Wings since day one. What a great draft pick by Stevie Y. He's Henrik Zetterberg and Datsuk put together. and he's got 63 points so far, 22 goals, 41 assists. I believe he's going to be 89, 90 points by the end of the season. This guy is going to be the limit for him. He is going to be definitely going to be a future Hart Trophy player. Lucas Raymond is that future. And now, and I want to go back to Mika Rantanen. There's another option I was hearing is that Mika Rantanen, there's a plan B for Toronto. If they don't get Mitch Marner signed to a contract extension, Rantanen is plan B for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, I forgot to mention it, but now you know. So now let's get to the recap, or should I say preview for tonight's games. And tonight we're going to see a unique battle with three teams on the line here. So first off, we got the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New York Rangers. I believe we're going to see a Matt Rempe and Ryan Reeves fight site. I believe we're going to see a fight again. It's going to be round two. And I got to say, it's crucial for both games. Toronto, if they win, they regain the Atlantic Division lead. Rangers win, they can build out their momentum. Now we go to the Western Conference with the LA Kings and the Dallas Stars. Close game matchup. And LA's got to be creeping up on Edmonton. And then Dallas, they're creeping up on whoever in they got to maintain that lead, though. They got to maintain that lead in the Central Division because, you know, I'm they need to get to catch up with Winnipeg, I should say. Catch up with Winnipeg. Yeah. And, Minnesota is not too far. So is Colorado. I mean, three teams who are fighting in the Central Division are playing tonight. Minnesota and Colorado. Colorado, they got to build that wild card lead and they got to play catch up with the Minnesota Wild. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a very, that's the game I want to circle at tonight. Besides watching Toronto and New York Rangers, I'm telling you, Minnesota, Colorado, they are almost identical. 34-21 and 4 Minnesota, 34-24 and 2 for the Colorado Avalanche. I gotta say this is gonna be a very close game. And Dallas is second, Minnesota's third, Colorado's wild card one. I mean, yeah, everyone's gonna be standing point watching for the whole evening. And yeah, we're seeing some good, exciting hockey right there tonight. All right, we'll be back here tomorrow. We'll be filming tomorrow in the late afternoon, early evening after the Florida Panthers play against the Calgary Flames. This has been 2 Minutes in the Box with Gordo. Hope you guys have a wonderful day and God bless.